Just gonna go rent a
I have
car
a
and
question though, do we do a pledge or anything?
yeah. So we've got Airbnbs lined up.
We haven't done this for
a bunch of different areas. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I guess I am.
We're live
I mean,
already when you are.
I'd much rather go a different time.
I'm gonna call this, this work session of the Seward City Council to order. It is a work session at 5:30 on Monday, July 24th, 2023. And we, as at work sessions, I'll have the clerk call roll and then we'll just get right into it. And it's been a long time since we've had a work session, so. Okay, go ahead, Mr.
Okay,
Clerk.
roll call for the work session. Calhoun.
Here.
Barnwell.
Here.
Wells.
Here.
DeMoss.
Here.
Finch is excused. Osenga.
Here.
And Mayor McClure.
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you. The topic of this work session is discussing water and sewer infrastructure, and I'm going to start off by asking administration to say some things and tell what they've given us, and then we'll proceed from there.
So Madam Mayor is a request of one of the council members to have this information brought forward, and Doug brought up a bunch of items for there, what we had listed, what's coming up, and he wants to get up there and explain it further, but we'll be having our, in the plan there, what we want to do, and then we have finance here to talk about some of the finances for these projects.
Okay. So Doug, do you want to, oh, you've got something prepared.
I'm just following along with you guys. Do I have to do the inside city limits or work session?
I don't know. We do keep, are there minutes like that? Not.
We keep notes. They're more casual.
So should we have the names? Well, maybe for
Just
the radio.
Public Works Director.
Thank you. I think
Sure.
for people listening that
Right.
aren't seeing.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
That's helpful.
I guess I
Okay.
shouldn't have asked it.
Now you have to.
So it was at the bequest of council to have a little more information on the water sewer infrastructure projects that we have going on or that we have scheduled in lieu of the new water sewer that's been going in. We've been doing a lot of development and so far a lot of those, the ARPA funds and different funding has gone toward that newer development into the developer reimbursement, those type of things. We do have many projects that we want to get done and we want to work on. As far as critical, what we put into the packet is what we've been asking for in the capital projects, and I should probably highlight it as we went through those. But those are some of the bigger ones we're looking at, but we're really, for the water projects, we have a lot of cement, asbestos pipe throughout town, especially downtown. There's a lot of it. It's not a problem until you dig it up. So then that's why it's always buried in place. You don't mess it up or you have then an issue, because once you break it up and those things start flying, there's an issue with it. So we do have a lot of, well, not a lot, we've got a little bit of clay pipe for sewer pipe here downtown. Fourth Avenue has some, and there's a few others. That's probably the most fragile of all of them. We'd like to get some of those done. We have the main things we have that I would prioritize for the water department itself. What we really need to look at on the water side of it is our number one would be our Elm Street. We have a 2-inch line over there that's been way, it's compromised, and we need to get that one in and get it to a real water main. That one would be our first priority that we would like to go to, and we can get some pricing on it. The thing we have with water lines, and it's something that we all have to be cognizant of, water lines typically are always in the street. When you replace a water line, you are replacing that street, all the pavement. So it's that the whole thing is torn up to go. So we're very cognizant of the higher cost, and so as we look at new projects, especially street paving projects coming up, those those are ones we have to look at to try to add those water projects into it. We have a few sewer lines in the street, but most of the sewers run down the alleys. So as we're looking at sewer lines, they're much less costly because you don't have to do any of the pavement. But so, you know, the first one we had, like I said, that would be the Elm Street we'd like to go, and it's been on all the capital projects. The second one we've had in is getting valving done. We have, I mean, not a lot, but there's 4 intersections we would like to do, and just basically you're digging up the intersection and revalving all of those. What we're looking at is, as we get all the infrastructure, and we did have some good examples with the water pipe that got hit over by the motel, and how we had to go valve all around that. If the valves don't work to shut things down, it makes it more difficult. You have to go back further and shut more and more and more off in town. That would be a big priority for us, is to get the valving back up to snuff. We've got a few others in town, but again, you're digging up pavement, but you're not digging up a whole street. So we'd be able to dig those in. I would really like to see those things get done to further along everything else, because that would be our biggest concern, is if we can't shut valves down to isolate a water problem if we had one. So that would be our second priority. And then number 3, we're looking at Bear Drive. It's really shallow, it's only 3 feet deep. It's a 10-inch cement asbestos line. We would just replace it with we maybe would go plastic, but it really needs to get deep and down. It's an older line. We've had to go back, try to re-insulate and keep it from freezing. But we just go to an 8-inch ductile liner, more likely to put in. So those 3 would be our highest priorities. The big one we've got that you see on is, and I've got it marked here with me as number 4, is to replace the big 14 and 10-inch line across from Phoenix, and it goes all the way up to Diamond. That's going to be a really tough one right now. We don't have the funding to do it. It's a multi-million-dollar one. And when that happens, we're going to be digging up the whole bike path along the highway, so we're into possibly that far west lane. And now that they're doing this 0 through 8, that'll definitely, it's all working good right now, but that's a big one that would be nice to get done. We've got a lot to do on that.
Question, I'm looking at that, and it says, I hate to say only $250,000, but the other one, the Elm Street, is like $600,000 each year, so that, how does that?
The Elm Street
parse out?
6,000 total?
Well, it was 600,000 in 2024, 600,000 in 2025, 26.
I think he misplaced that. I'm sorry,
Oh.
he's got that misplaced.
Unless
on
I
there.
lined that up.
It should be opposite. Should be probably 250 for the Elm Street,
Ah.
I believe. It might be, that's an older number, so it's gonna be a little over that.
Okay.
We need to put it out for bid and get that one taken care of.
You had just said it was really expensive for the Phoenix Diamond, and
Yeah.
that made no sense.
Right,
Thank you.
thank you. The Phoenix Diamond definitely will be the bigger one and have the highway interaction to work through with that one. And then, and you guys, please feel free to stop me or ask questions, just any of that. I'm just trying to go through it and make sure we kind of at least get what we're looking at from a department view. Skip to sewer, and I just hit the top 3 or 4 of both of these. Sewer, the top one we'd be looking at is the alley from Madison to Monroe, and that's a little newer one, not really listed. We've got a valley in it, which would be, this would be the alley just north of the shop, where the 2 new little places went in there. We've got a valley in that sewer line, and sewer line, for folks maybe that don't know, it's all gravity flow. Water line, you have pressure that pushes the water through, but the sewer has to have that incline or decline to be able to flow. And it's not a big one, and we may be able to even do a change order on the Belane Avenue over there to add that in there. It'd be a good time to just get it done. So that's one we would like to see done, so that we don't have constantly going over and trying to clean that one out. Second one we've got is, and it's listed in here, manhole refurbishment. The manholes that we've got, a lot of older ones. They are, the older ones have a lot of infiltration, and what that is the water, groundwater, will leak up through these manholes, and then also rainwater over the top is getting in some of these manholes. If you've seen some, I'm not sure why over the years they actually put honeycomb lids on some of these manholes. We don't want extra water in the manholes. That's just more we're processing, and it dilutes our inflow, which then makes it harder to remove what we're trying to remove at the plant, out of the flow point. So that would be a big thing, is trying to get the manholes refurbished. Some of them we can just route, some of them we have to build. But we had an issue with one, and it's typically when we get the biggest rainfalls, it's a lot, and it just adds enough. It's enough to add all the rain that goes in the sewer lagoons itself, just flowing in from the rain, but we don't need to add more if we can stop that and get those back to where they should be. And then the third thing we've got, this is something that, and folks probably have seen even happen out here near the harbor, going down. We've got a lot of the restaurants. We've got Chinooks and Ray's and Breeze Inn and the rest of them. We have a real, it's called fog. What that means is fat, oil, and grease. And so these different establishments, they try to get their grease traps cleaned out. But we see several times, in fact, they've had it just this year, their line between our line and their building keeps getting clogged up. Well, a lot of that is grease, and it's entering the system. They're trying to do their traps. For us, I mean, we had suggested to us that we should get bubblers and add different things in our lift station and try to help that lift station so it's not getting all clogged up. And I guess what I'd almost like to see is, maybe it's more of a source thing. Do we need to help these places out somehow? Is there better technology? Is there better traps? Is there better ways to do it? You know, we've talked to some of the cooks at these places, and they say, yeah, we're doing our best trying to clean it out, but we get called out on most of these, and a lot of them aren't our infrastructure, but they're not sure, and they think maybe our line is clogged. And we've had a lot of that. So some way to take care of the fog problem, whether we add something to our lift station to clean it, but we're still getting that grease through the system, which doesn't help all the way through. So any of that, that'd be a big number 3 for us to try to do that. And for just, you know, I'm happy to take any questions on more, because we definitely have more projects going on in the different water and sewer lines throughout. But like I said, the water lines, we really have to start looking to, anytime we're doing a road, we need to look at those lines. And it does up the price of, you know, just paving is cheaper than doing the water line. But when you're doing the water line, you're gonna have to pave in almost every one of them. I'd be glad to take any questions about projects listed in the capital, or discussion, or others that you may have noted or been told about.
Any questions?
No, the reason that I kind of brought this up, Madam Mayor, thank you, is more, I guess, less on the exact priority and more on where funding is going at this time. You know, we're putting in a lot of new infrastructure. We put a lot of money to the DRP, a lot of the ARPA money and different things. And what I wanted to find out is what our plan is going to be to fund these projects, and that we are planning on putting money away to take care of this, and that because we have a lot of new infrastructure going in, and my concern, and maybe it's not founded, I'm not that educated on a lot of it, is all the flow from all the new infrastructure hitting the old infrastructure and what it does to that. And what things do we need to be planning for to handle all the new infrastructure? And are we financially planning to take care of those things? That's really my thing.
Thank you. That's kind of what I had in mind too. So,
And I can add to that, just with the different things with our water sewer, our sewer sludge removal. It's a big deal. We got $2 million that got put into Hugh Murkowski to use for sludge removal. But that doesn't really do what we need to do out there. I mean, it helps. It doesn't finish it when we do sludge removal, say at Lowell Point, let alone Smith, but we need new liner out here. It's that time that it needs to be replaced. At that time, we've talked about the different things over the past couple of years about what improvements, whether it's aeration, whether it's different types of aerators, blowers, you know, better, more efficient blowers that don't take as much electricity to run. All of those things are projects to look in that, yeah, we've got to somehow figure out funding. Most of this stuff sits in waiting for funding is really what it comes to. And so when we're looking at a big project like that, when I talked about the Phoenix to Phoenix to Diamond, that big line that needs to get replaced, it's a multi-million-dollar, similar to what a sludge removal. We've got a great start, you know, with that $2 million. And, you know, we could go in there and just do sludge removal and not do anything else, but it'd be a shame to drain it down and have all that issue of getting the drain down, working one cell at a time, and then back up without doing those improvements. It's just the time to do it. But, you know, we're looking at trying to do that in 2025, and we've been looking and trying to get more funding to do that. The SMIC one, we need a bypass in there, and especially with, you guys see the development, the things happening at SMIC, and industrial's going bigger and bigger. At some point, we're gonna have to do some sort of a dual cell there. Last time when we drained that, we literally had to truck all the sewage from there constantly to lower that down enough to do the sludge removal. So it just got moved across, back truck, just constantly going. But, you know, you can't just dump it, you know, let it go. You've got to get it out of there. So the prison's going to keep flowing. All those things that we're trying to take care of, it isn't an easy process when you do these. So, yeah, we definitely would look for funding and how to fund. That's one I think we have to leave as another, and I didn't put it in the sewer lines, but, you know, doing the lagoon repairs and cleaning and stuff has got to be right up there. You know, I don't want it forgotten that we have $2 million there and just say, okay, we're good, because we're really not. We have a lot more to get to make that happen.
Councilmember Wells.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Doug, when you're doing the upcoming, you know, next year's budgeting, and we're looking at these items, are there, I know that you have your list of priorities, are there items that you're going to be trying to budget for the fall, like you said, 2025, so the 2024 budget, do you plan on taking money out of whatever that existing budget is for some of these larger projects, in addition to the, you know, for example, the Low Point Road?
Yeah, the Low Point Lagoon, to do some of those, we have some fund balance to work into those. We have our enterprise fund that we would use to do some of these, and that's what we're trying to work with. And so we're trying to add these together, but we've looked at what can we do and do one big project and try to get it all and leave everything else behind, or a combination thereof. We are looking to do, say, the alleyway over there on the north side of the shop between 6th and Blaine. To do that, it's a smaller one. If we aren't able to use, say, ARPA funds or something for that, we'd have to pull from our fund balance to do that one. We're constantly applying for different loans, and sometimes those loans turn to grants, but it's through the DEC revolving fund, and there's money available. But all of these projects, when you go to apply for them, they say, okay, yeah, we've got some money, this will work, here, fill out these, and it's hundreds of pages of documents to try to fill out on applications and fill this and provide that. It just gets overwhelming with the staffing we have to try to do that, you know. And I know we've had some grant help on different things, but still, even those guys are kind of overwhelmed. So, you know, we're certainly looking for that, but some of the projects, like I said, 2023, we want to get that one done, we want Elm Street done. We're trying to do those one way or the other this year. So those would be our biggies for that. We'd love to start knocking out sewer manholes, and we've got an application in for the loan for that. If we could even get half, it helps, but we all got to remember that, you know, if things are a project and it's $1 million project, we got to come up with 500,000. You know, so it adds up really quick. The prices of water and sewer and pavement have gone way up. So we will try to keep them going.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam
Councilor.
Mayor. Speaking of pavement, did I see in here some road repavement areas? Some redoing of roads in the upcoming budget? In here?
In the capital improvement,
Yeah.
when you look at the CIP plan, it's pretty much a wish list.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's not funded, but it's a wish list, so we try to get those funds, and sometimes we'll get grants or get a way to fund those, and we'll say, yeah, pull that off, let's get it. And so there's some of those. We do have the 0 through 8 in town right now, and yeah, there's several we would like to do. Gotta have the funds to do them.
May I ask a
Yeah,
quick
go
question?
ahead.
So my follow-up question to that is, when we got the funding to redo a bunch of the roads in town, which I believe was 3 years ago?
2016, 17.
Was it really that long ago? Okay, jeez. Why was Brownell Street treated like an alley and not paved, not asphalted?
It's 20-foot right-of-way. All others are 60, 80-foot right-of-ways. It has been an alley for history forever. It became a right-of-way, and I tried looking those up a while back, and I believe your neighbor to the south still shows it as a alley on their plat. The original plat does. I looked up on neighbors, yours, different ones, of where it's at. There's a few that do list it as a right-of-way, and when you get on our city map, it definitely lists it as Brownell Street. I arrived in 2016, and that list was pretty much made for me. However, once we passed the 3 million, I drove around town, and when I got here, these roads were awful. So, going through with my personnel, everybody, as we added anything on there, it wasn't one that came up as one to do. Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, it's tough, and when you look at that, we don't have many. Alleys are tough. We're trying to improve those right now. We've been out doing a lot on these alleys with gravel, but we can pave all the alleys, but almost all the other utilities, sewer, electric, and all the communications, most of those are going down those alleys. We gotta be careful what we wish for. I mean, I'd love to have paved everything and get everything underground, never have to worry about it, but that's not reality. Something happens, or someone new comes in and it's another dig up, so it's all up to funds.
That makes sense, thank you.
Councilmember Demas.
So I'm assuming that that's the reason that the Dairy Hill area wasn't paved, is because utilities haven't been, there's a lot of, there's not sewer up there yet, or is that why there's some of the dirt roads still in Ingrid, or in?
You know, I think that most of the pavement that went in, and when we did the 2016 and we got a $3 million, it was a bond that helped with we had, I think, almost another $3 million out of the state on that paving fund, but it was all grind and pave. So it was taking existing paved roads and grinding them and repaving them with new surface. So that's what the vast majority, there was a little bit of other.
And the alleys have been looking really good, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a few other, we have the Dairy Hill area, we have Brownell, we have Lear, we have Alameda. All of those would be so great to get paved somehow, some way. But, you know, it's just, like I said, it's a matter of funds and being able to get there. We have a few ideas to try to get some, if we can get little places here and there. We're gonna have a couple, just like I said on these valving, if we dig up an intersection, you have that big square, but at least it's just a spot there that you can pave and redo that much quicker, cheaper than what you could do the whole street. But getting those valves redone that need to be done, like I said, I think there's only 4 intersections we need to do, but probably 2,000 or 3,000 per intersection. Sometimes there's 4. When we did this repave back in 17, we did do right up by the Chinese restaurant, Jefferson and 4th. And we had that whole thing, if anybody remembers that, opened up. And 4 lines coming in, got all new valving in place. There were some real problems with that particular one. And that was one of the worst and one of the most needed for us to control water. So, you know, we want to try to work those through in order, but at least we can hopefully take bites of those as we can get funding.
Other comments?
Well, just a question, and maybe, you know, we can get some more input from some folks out there. So, if I'm hearing you right, we have $2 million for the sludge removal, correct? But we have other things that we could do when we do that to repair, fix, whatever it is out there. So what are we doing, and maybe the administration can get in this, or finance, what are we doing to have that available? Because it sounds like a priority. You hear about it, we hear about it all the time. So how close are we to having those funds? Or are there places we can take funds from to get there so that we can get that done? And you can check it off your list, and as opposed to us sitting here with $2 million and nothing's happening.
Right, as far as what funds are available, I don't know what's currently available. We've had some ARPA funds, we've had some others go through. We certainly have been working with our legislators to get other funding also. That particular project is going to be, you know, something we have to look at. I've been asking revolving fund, trying to get other things. We're working on those projects, but as short of those, as far as my purview, I pretty much, whatever we can get through our legislature, and hopefully whatever we can get from the revolving fund loans.
So how much is what's the bottom line cost for the sludge removal and repairs?
The sludge removal would take at least all of that.
Right.
And just remember, when we do sludge removal and a liner replacement, we have to hire a helicopter to lift all those biodomes out. We've got these concrete bases where the biodomes were added in for better filtration going out there. So there's a lot to it. So the $2 million would be trying to just get those things all done. I would estimate where we're at is probably closer to 5 by the time we're really done, if we were to do all of those things.
Okay.
You know, you're looking between 4 and 5 million probably.
That gives us
And just to know too, I mean, and Stephen could look at it too, the $2 million we're looking at, we sent back for feedback and said, okay, what do we need to do? Where are we at? What's the timeline? And again, they sent back a packet with, I don't remember how many attachments on there for here, do this, turn all that back in. And it really gets overwhelming trying to get all that.
Go ahead,
Just
Councilmember.
one other comment. It kind of sounds like to me, and again, I apologize if it doesn't make sense, but maybe we need to develop a better financing plan of our own for, like, when we have excess sales tax revenues, or we have things like that become available, you know, because we moved some of that stuff, you know, last year, I think, into sidewalks and things, and I'm not sure if those sidewalks got done or not, but maybe we need to look at a specific plan to help get those funds available for something like that. That's very important, because we can put all this happy new infrastructure in and it's all going out there. That needs to be functioning pretty well, I think. So what I don't want to see is, I don't want to see us get into a place where all of a sudden we've got a $20 million bond we have to take out because we haven't done what we needed to do for years. That's my concern. And, you know, it's not pointing fingers at anybody, it's not being negative about anybody, because I've been on the council before and we didn't address things then when we probably should have. So my thought is just maybe we need, that's why I wanted a work session to start talk about that and get some input from other folks too, to maybe help us focus on how we can make that happen. Grants are great if we can get them, but you're sitting there going, there's 300 pages we got to fill out, and then who knows? We've got to be able to develop a plan fiscally to help make those things happen.
And I think I can help address that a little bit. Over the past couple of years, we started a water sewer rate study. It got about done right just COVID was hitting, and really has been stalled since. I've been talking in the last month now, trying to get us back online to do that, but part of that is a rate structure that funds these things we need to get, whether it's through rates or we put projects in that say we can only do these with other funding, then we still do our rate study of where it's going to be. It's going to have to be a little bit of a rate change that we've all talked about, and probably with new council, one of the big things we looked at was the ERU issue on a lot of different places and getting rid of ERUs, at least from 3 plexes up. They would all go to meters. So to me, that's a huge first step. And I may even try to bring that separately, through administration to say, let's just get everybody metered, that we can get metered as far as the, how much do we want to pay of that? Do we want to, is it on the customer? Is it on us? Is it on, how does that work? And so that's a discussion we've had, but it's something we are working through on the rate study. And part of that rate study helps to clarify some of what we need funding for and what can we do out of a fund balance, or when you're looking at projects in like the sludge removal and all the extras to it. If we're not able to get grants, we should be doing that through some sort of rates. Somehow it has to be taken care of, and that's what we're studying.
This is really good that we're actually talking about this, because we don't want to get into a situation like we got into with the electric, that, all of a sudden we have to bond hugely and such. I want to be able to get the public to be able to give some input too. Would that be okay if we see if anybody wants to, I don't know if there's some public out there. Do any of you want to come up and say something? Go ahead, Linda, if you want. Because we actually have that opportunity.
It's a work session, so I don't know that I need to come up. But,
Well, it's just, that way you
This'll
can be
work.
heard better.
Thank you. Linda Cat outside city limits, right next to the lagoon. So I really appreciate Councilmember Calhoun's comments, and I really appreciate the situation that you guys are in as council people, because things happen over time, and many of you weren't here for some of the things that have happened over time in terms of that lagoon. So I really am asking you to be visionaries, because one of the things that's happened in the past 25 years is you've had a consultant that you trust tell you that that lagoon was too small for summer loads, even now. Now, so far this summer, we're having it's been okay, but that hasn't always been the case. And as you're talking about adding new subdivisions, what we begin to realize is that it's too small in the summer for the summer loads, and as you add more subdivisions, you're going to make it even less capable to handle summer loads. And so at the point where Jeanette had left, before she left, she was at a point where she understood that what really needs to happen, I mean, you have to continue maintaining this, and you have to make sure that it's going to work. But in the meantime, a new facility somewhere within city limits, it's really called for. Something much closer to all the subdivisions that you're putting in, for example. And I think that there's technology out there now that would allow you to have a much smaller footprint, and also over time, not spend the kind of money that you have to spend on these lagoons every 5 to 8 years. That's the time frame for doing these sludge removals. Now, you don't always have to replace the liner, but you do always, given its design now, have to get the helicopters, have to do all this other stuff, and it's very expensive. And I'm certain that for example, if you looked at what Homer does on an annual basis and over a 10-year period, I'm certain that they're spending less money on ongoing maintenance with the kind of facility that they have. And there are other facilities, other things other than lagoons. So I'm really excited that you're making sure that you're doing the daily stuff and putting money aside for the required deferred maintenance, but I also really, really encourage you to be visionaries and take that next step and think about what do you really need in 30 years. Because that lagoon is going to be really old in 30 years. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Do either, yeah, come on up.
Hello, this requires some inside signals. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedules and getting work sessions, cutting your personal time. I understand, I appreciate that. But I thought we had lost the art of coming together and talking about these important matters, so I appreciate you bringing this format back. And I almost wish that we would have had this format back when we were talking about the Hilltown program. While it's extremely vital for our community to expand residential, I would have loved to have this work session and figure out a way to balance the distribution of proceeds that we receive from the federal government. So between CPD funds, government funds, ARPA funds, I mean, there was a slug of money, probably in excess, and Stephen can correct me, but probably in excess of $4.5–5 million for them here that we were bestowed with. Nice gift to have. Several of you, especially Mr. Calhoun and Mayor Sue, were around when we were trying to balance budgets, talking about laying off a janitor. Those are tough times. And as I shared with you today in a distribution of documents, we haven't submitted or injected any MRF funds into our MRF activity, which are major repair and replacement funds to do the things that we're doing now. So we haven't put anything in there for 7 years. So I hope we get back to budgets process, we can look at that. I cringe when I hear about talking about rate increases for the water and sewer on top of what we're going to be seeing here shortly on a rate study and a rate increase for electric. So while myself and others can probably easily afford these things, there's a lot of people in our community that aren't as fortunate. We struggle to make those monthly payments, so it'll be a challenge. With respect to community member Paquette's comments, probably in my lifetime, I may see us put in a new lagoon or a whatever they call it now, there's a nuclear pit somewhere that's going to be in town. I think the road out of town is a dangerous plight out Little Pine Road, and I hope to God it stays there for a long time, but we don't know. And I could probably envision where we're going to be talking about putting a lagoon somewhere in town, and maybe it's at the end of the airport, maybe it's off where the old dump was at, but it probably will happen. And so maybe that's something we add to these work session conversations, because if that thing goes out there, I don't know what we do. You talk about an emergency, that's an emergency, that's right around the corner. So thank you much again for your time tonight and coming out here. Good evening.
Thank you. Before we bring it back, does anyone else out there want to say anything? Do you want to? Carol? You're the only other public person there if you want to.
I can comment, but
Yeah.
I'll just give you some history since I was around when we built the road. Went through that whole arduous process and why we got there, and why we're here with it all, and it had to do a lot with government regulation. it was not Seward's choice to put in that secondary treatment plant. We got brought there under threat of legal sanctions by EPA. The city fought that for a number of years. When I came to the city, we were in the middle of that battle. The university had done studies out here in the bay and showed that there was no negligible impact on Resurrection Bay from what the city was doing over the years, and that's just outfalling it, albeit it should have been done with deep ocean outfalls, but so we were forced into that location. They required it a certain size, certain depth. It had to be where it's not going to be flooded. Even that is not an ideal situation right there by Spruce Creek, but nonetheless, that's what happened. We didn't have a choice. And before we put that lagoon in, there were no sewer charges in Seward. Free. When that got adopted, EPA promised that the rates would never go, well, immediately they went higher than what EPA said they were going to do. But we had no recourse. We were stuck with that. And I'll tell you, you're still going to be stuck with that. You're still regulated both by EPA and DEC. It's a tough. My mother used to say we live between a rock and the deep blue sea. And we do here. And that's a real challenge. Anytime we go put in facilities. Now there may be technologies out there now that might make it possible, but it's all going to be costly. And I'll tell everybody, just like I tell people about electric bills, you're never going to have a lower sewer bill or water bill than you have today. Same with electric. It'll never be lower than it is today. And that's just the unfortunate thing about it all. I wish we all had magic crystal balls, and I laud the council for having this challenge in administration to try to look at these things. And there's no easy answers. There's just no easy answers. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people that are retired here, fixed incomes. I'm one of them. I know how difficult it is to make ends meet when you're on that kind of a situation. And I empathize with everybody in the community that has that challenge. It's not easy. No easy solutions. We've got to do our best, pick the low-hanging fruit as much as possible, do what's possible. It's the art, politics is the art of the possible. and I think that's where we're at, and I appreciate you doing this tonight. Thank you.
Question for you. Do you remember that when we were growing up here, we grew up here almost at the same time, that we couldn't, at least I wasn't allowed to play on the beach, that one beach where the sewer outfall was?
Yeah, because they were just, they didn't, there was no depth going out.
It just
They were
went.
Right on the beach.
Yeah.
They should have been put out deep ocean, but we were talking about it before EPA said no, we couldn't do that.
Right.
The bay is, that bay is huge, it's deep, it flushes. Probably would not, even to this day. Now there's going to be some audience that would argue about that. We know our friend out there talks about it. And so we'd probably never even be able to consider the thought of doing that. I mean, I'll tell you what will happen if the lagoon fails, you'll be back opening up these out. And that's where it'll have to go. So the city's had to do that a couple of times that I'm aware of when we had issues with the liners failed. Put the sewer somewhere. They got some waivers and put it back out into the bay. I can remember the primarily Korean folks standing right on top of the sewer outfall line, snagging up wads of toilet paper.
Yeah. I actually remember that too, yeah.
Because they know what they're doing, but and then immediately drag it ashore and maybe start having sushi right on the beach. Once a wonder they didn't get something back. But that's just a horror story that I hope the press is not here. Published, not helpful. Anyway, but I've seen that, and I know all of the challenges that you face. I was the one that handled the contract, put in, I negotiated the land deal with Alan Low Point from Lagoon. I went through that whole process. Made trips to Seattle to deal with EPA when we were doing that, and then I helped manage the contract, the construction contract when the system was put in, including the road to Low Point and the line and the power line that went in that allowed people out in Low Point to get power. So all of those things became possible, and of course that just added to more. But Low Point's not connected to the sewer out there. They have to deal with theirs and septic tanks and stuff. But tough problems. And I appreciate you guys having to address that. Sometimes they don't sound appreciative, but I really truly am.
Thank you, Derek. Well, that pretty well taps out the people in the audience. Bring it back to, unless you have further comments at this point, back to administration. Do you have more to say?
Doug, you have anything you want to add, or?
No,
We
I
got time.
think most of what we covered, and like I said, I think probably brought more questions and what we can do, and, I think there's definitely more information to come, and especially as we get back in this rate study to just show what we're looking at for projects and how we're trying to get there.
Nothing from you, Mike?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. No, I think, just starting a discussion and maybe getting everybody's brains thinking about stuff like that, and the fact that, if we haven't put money in the MRF fund for 7 years, maybe we should start taking a look at things like that and start planning a little bit more down the road. So I think it's a good discussion. I appreciate it.
Good. We have another member of the public that came in. Did you have anything you wanted to say about we're at the work session about the infrastructure?
I think the city, no, I'm not prepared to talk about it. There's definitely needs. I know that my co-chair on PACAB here has talked quite a bit about the sewer plant condition, and hopefully the city will grow so much we need a second facility, but quite frankly, I think that Public Works has done a great job in most places.
Okay. Any comments further from council members? Councilmember Barlow.
I'm just wondering, I don't know how this fits into our comprehensive strategic plan, and if the capital improvement plan actually reflects the capital, or the strategic or comprehensive plan reflects this, or I haven't seen it in there. I just don't know.
I'm not sure. Does administration care to comment on that?
Go ahead.
So the strategic plan's a 1999 document. The comp plan is a 2016 document when it was originated. Both those documents definitely need to be more in sync with CIP. So the CIP, it's a rolling plan that you guys will approve the first meeting in December of every year. So the next one will be a 2024, 2029. To Doug's point, we tended to treat it like a wish list that accompanies our legislative priorities where we go seek external funding, as opposed to something that we incorporate the more priority items into our operating budget, which is probably the direction that I think Councilmember Calhoun was really speaking to. I don't know if that answered your question, Councilmember Barnwell.
Yeah, I think it does. Sounds like exactly what we just need to think long-term and try to prioritize the projects, and as a community have that input also, which I think comprehensive strategic plan would be vital there. Yeah. And the last thing I want to say is that I do think like parking, things that can generate money and that we are not paying attention to, I think that should be a focus, because I think we're losing money on those, and so I would like to emphasize that.
Councilmember Wells, you had something.
So I have a question and a statement. First statement to Councilmember Barwell regarding parking. As most of you know, I recently purchased the property on the corner of Port Avenue and the Seward Highway, and I cannot tell you how many times a day I have to go out there and tell people they cannot park on my property because they're trying to avoid paying at parking at the harbor. It's like 20-some cars a day that are trying to avoid it. Had people camping in my parking lot last week. So, that being said, yeah, I wish we could enforce parking. Secondly, though, question, if we were to say, for example, our sewer system and our lagoon system is maxed out with the amount of homes and infrastructure that we currently have, is there a way that we could say, okay, with all new construction, right? I know that we have the reimbursement program for utilities and things, but couldn't we also include a fee that goes directly into a fund for expanding or a new wastewater system? Because since they're bringing new homes and new additional uses to that property in that area, is that a feasible thing to think about? Instead of passing it on to every current user who is already paying for what we have right now, right? So instead of bonding this whole thing, is there a way that we could generate, such as Councilmember Barnwell stated, to generate revenue from new construction? So I guess that's a question for administration. Is that something that is worth thinking about?
Yeah, so just trying to, like, down the harbor, we have a CRR fee, capital repair replacement, and every transaction's a little bit goes towards this fee. But getting everybody that comes to the city to do it, I would probably have to say go to, I know there is I gotta be careful. A 1% sales tax is gonna be stopping pretty soon. Might be a thing to keep that 1% going to pay for the lagoon and some of this infrastructure, because everybody uses it, everybody's gotta pay for it through that 1% sales tax. Just a thought, I'm just throwing it out there, I know it's
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So follow up to that, now, you're not suggesting an additional 1% sales tax. So
Correct.
can you tell everybody that's watching at home and for the rest of us, so what 1% sales tax is going away that you're referring to? And when does that happen?
We want to open this can.
yeah, I thought he was gonna open up a can of worms, but let's.
It's not, well.
No, it's not opening up a can of worms, but he can answer that question.
So it's not a can, it's more like a barrel. This is a barrel worm. So there's a 1% sales tax that goes to Providence currently. And that 1% sales tax was actually put in place prior to Providence. It goes back to Seward General Hospital. We could have a 5-hour discussion about that topic. Essentially, the city uses that 1% for capital items for Providence. The city is not obligated to do so. And we have a memo from our attorney when they examined it that looked at that. What was happening was every year, or regularly, Seward General Hospital would have a shortfall. They would be operating in the red. And the city would have to cover that shortfall through the general fund. Because of that, the 1% sales tax was implemented in order to cover that. I'm trying to be careful how much I go into the weeds on this one. So we can, and a lot of times people tie that 1% sales tax back to the bond payment for Mountain Haven, and those two things are completely separate. We can pay off the Mountain Haven bond in 2026. There's approximately $14 million left, 13 and change, whatever. Skip, or Mr. Ryerson probably knows the dollar amount better than I do. And we've got approximately $11 million in the healthcare fund right now. But in theory, once the Mountain Haven bonds are paid off, the city could retain that 1% in sales tax and use it for anything that serves the public vested interest.
Like health and safety sewer and such.
Can you tell us how much we gave them last year? Profits.
The finance director's here, she can just take a second to look it up.
Thank you so much.
About 650.
Thank you.
Next, did you have a follow-up?
I had my follow-up question was gonna be, what's that 1% come out to be?
Oh, okay, there.
And so,
Great minds.
and so if I may though.
Go ahead.
About 1.4.
1.4 million, okay. So then, in conjunction with Councilmember Calhoun stating, you know, we need to start saving money for these larger projects, and instead of, in my opinion, instead of increasing expenses, everybody's already used to paying this 1% sales tax, right? We're not increasing the sales tax, we're just moving the money into a different part of our infrastructure, right?
Correct.
We're not increasing anything if we were to do that.
Correct, and everybody pays.
And everybody pays, and you said, as the community, as sales grow and as the community grows, that 1.6 million is gonna grow every year. Councilmember Calhoun, would you agree that money could go into an operating and maintenance?
I would agree that that would definitely be worth looking at.
Yeah.
I think we should talk.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, good ideas. Councilmember Barnwell.
So I'm just curious, that if Providence got 650 last year, and we all of a sudden say, no more, are you implying that Providence is healthy enough that they don't need our help anymore, or are we at risk of losing our hospital?
That was many years ago when the city didn't have even a hospital. The city was helping them, of course, have the healthcare for the citizens. But that was many years ago. It's not me.
I'm gonna call on Mr. Robertson.
Can we relax for a minute?
Yeah, oh, well, this is a work
So it's
session.
work session.
I just need to interject a couple of things. Let me clarify something. We, the citizens of Seward, own the physical assets of the hospital and Mount Haven. We own them. They're our assets on our books. Providence is our management group. When we built or decided to go with Inland Providence in the management agreements, one of the stipulations was that all the equipment that's in those buildings will be bought by us and owned by us. So that in the event that we fire Providence or Providence decides to leave, this isn't working for them, we still have all the equipment and physical structure in the building to turn over to a new operator. So until such time that we, the community, decide to sell another major asset that the city owns, those funds in that 1% need to be sticking around. We're going to continue to be buying equipment. What we paid for that MRI machine, $1.3 million. We just paid it off, I think, a year or two ago. So now you're seeing a surplus in that hospital fund now, because we just got done paying for that MRI machine. But there's a mammogram machine, there's tons of equipment out there that's on the books. And correct me if I'm wrong, are we still in the management agreement on the hook for any operating losses?
I don't think so. I mean, my director's shaking her head no, so.
I'd ask administration to confirm this, that we, the city, started with Providence, we split the losses and the gains 50-50. When it was steadily starting to lose, Providence wanted out of that deal. And basically, we were on the hook for all the profits and all the liabilities. And when the census fell here 4 or 5 years ago, we were in financial dire straits. We had probably a $7 or $8 million liability that we were on the hook for to pay Providence back. They bankrolled it, brought in a new couple of CFO and CEO to run this facility, got the census up to 40, Medicaid rates were up, and all of a sudden they're churning money. So they're in the black. Mount Haven, yeah. The hospital doesn't make money, Mount Haven makes the money. So it's a match combination. So that's a little bit of background. So when we talk about the 1%, there's a couple of steps that we have to obviously follow going forward. But we do still need that. We hang around to pay for the equipment. And on a side note, having said that, just so you're aware, when you see Providence's financial statements and our audited financial statements, the cash that Providence has on their books in their annual audit, belongs to the city. That's your cash. need to be aware of that. They're just managers. They're using the cash as working capital, they're using the cash to make other improvements up there. Just know that that $2, $3, $4, $5 million that's sitting up there is your cash. So Mr. Wells' thoughts, put the money back out of there and sell that asset, do some of the 1%. You'll probably also want that $5 million or $4 million that's sitting around. And you want to take that and use that for a new septic lagoon somewhere in town. So a lot of things to talk about. Another great work session to come, I can see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Might I interject another thing?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Mayor Chicky,
Darryl.
we ought to think, while we're talking about all these big ideas, he's recently advanced the thought of looking at a East Peninsula Fire and EMS service area to incorporate, much like they've done for the rest of the borough. And I was going to bring that up, because I think it's time that we need to be thinking about that. Our ambulance corps is aging. They're like me. They're old and not worth much anymore because they physically can't do all this stuff. And I think it's, and know that fire is, all of that is a cost center item we need to be looking at constantly. So I would hope you have some dialogue with on that topic. This would incorporate building stations that are already built and around in the East Peninsula, and probably building more, replacing sewer. Obviously needs new fire station, new facilities here, and I think the time has come that we be looking at that. Now, take that one step further is hospital service area that would encompass perhaps the East Peninsula. Now, I don't know whether the voters out the road would ever buy into that at all, because then that would be part of they would be contributing to the cost of that hospital. But it would then become a borough facility. The borough would own it, be an EMS and rehabilitation service area, much like a fire department. I think, now that we're talking about divesting ourselves of certain things that we've grown very accustomed to, and I'm fighting it every step of the way, because I'm stuck in the trenches, but I need to get beyond that and start thinking about what is going to lead us out into the rest of this century in these kind of services. And so I ask you to think about this. Think about fire EMS. Also start thinking about hospital services. Now, the rest of the borough operates under that model. The mayor knows full well. And it's worked pretty well. And now, granted, they have a larger tax base than we do by a long shot. We've got more people to spread the burden out. We live in a very rural part of the borough here, where we don't have a lot of industrial, commercial stuff. All the commercial industrial stuff's right there in the city, for the most part. Anyway, I throw that out while we're talking about this stuff. It's off the topic, I know, and I would ask that you think about looking down the road at that. Anyway.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm hoping to get Peter Machicki over here to talk about that and let us all know. His idea, he bounced it off me when we had a mayor's meeting, a couple months ago, and it was kind of an offshoot, well, it's something he's been thinking about, but also the Cooper Landing area wanted to form their own fire emergency service area, and Cindy Eklund was sponsoring that or getting them to talk about it, and it turns out that the amount of mill rate increase they would have to be able to have their own was too overwhelming for the folks in Cooper Landing, so they dropped out of that idea, which opened up the door for Machicki's idea of a Eastern Peninsula service area, fire and like Central Peninsula has. And then we've always talked about the hospital thing, that was with Mike and Bar. So, those are other ideas of getting us, like Darryl says, moving along a little bit more into the future.
Paring down the size of your government.
Well, somewhere along the line. Anyway, that's a little off topic, but it's really important to hear about. Now, I'll give him a call about that and get him to come and talk to us about it, because, Councilmember Barnwell.
Yeah, sorry, I could probably, we could spend all day on the hospital, but if the hospital has 5 or 6 million, and I assume the board manages that with the hospital in terms of, but we're also collecting 1%. How are those funds distributed or managed? And at some point, and at what point is that fund, should that be distributed? It sounds like a confusing, it sounds like a pretty darn confusing arrangement at this point.
You want to speak to that?
I would just make a recommendation to table that question, have a work session on the hospital.
See, we're starting down the road of work sessions suddenly.
I mean,
No, it's absolutely true.
Only because it's a large topic, you know, it's an elephant, you gotta eat one bite at a time.
It's actually, Madam Mayor, it's actually timely. The operating agreement will be coming to council at the August 14th meeting.
Oh, wow.
I do want to chime in back to what Mr. Ryerson said. I think it's just really important that anytime we talk about Providence, that we remember Providence is the hospital. Mountain Haven is Mountain Haven, and those are two distinctly different topics, along with the 1%. The 1% is not tied to the operation of Providence Hospital, other than the capital piece. But it's really important just to keep in mind that we have an operating agreement with Providence to manage the hospital for the city. It's a city facility. It's assessed at $5.5 million. Mountain Haven's $32 million, and we have an outstanding bond that we can pay off in 2026. But it's really important to not bring Mountain Haven into that discussion about the operation of the hospital. They're two separate topics, related but separate.
Okay. Wow. Anything else? We're getting near our magic hour. Yes,
So,
Councilmember Weiss.
can we direct administration to put together another special meeting regarding, since we're coming up to start the negotiation and the Providence contract in August, should we meet about that?
In work sessions, we can't give direction, right?
Oh,
But
okay.
any two of us could request a work session on that for the 14th after this, I think. Is that how it goes? Yeah. So, we'll talk.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah. That's the one caveat of work sessions.
Got it.
We really
I forgot.
can't accomplish, mandates or things, so. We can talk.
Specificity.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order that anybody wants to say? Looks like we're winding down. Okay, well, thank you very much. This was very good chance to talk, and I know a couple of us have been wanting to get back to work sessions, and this format is really useful, and thank you for participating, all of you that are there. And there's nothing else. I will adjourn this work session at 6:38 by that clock. And we're going to be meeting again at 7.